We are joined by George De La Rama, Head of Advocacy and Communications of Child Fund Philippines. Good morning, George, and thanks for joining us here on Morning Matters.
Good morning, Pauline and Cheska and Angela, and to all your viewers.
All right. Well, first of all, George, this is a very serious matter. We're talking about children here. But first, what do you make of the latest data showing that stunting among Filipino children is now rising to about 25% in 2025? From an education standpoint, how concerning is this trend?
This is quite an emergency because when stunting increases to 25.3%, it means that one out of four Filipino children is entering a world already left behind, fighting an invisible battle that their own bodies and brains even before they even step into the classroom. So it's not just about being short for their age, it's actually the physical manifestation of chronic undernutrition, and that the latest data reported shows that despite various economic efforts, our most vulnerable children are sliding backward. So it also means that the critical first 1,000 days of a child's life are still, unfortunately, largely unaddressed for a quarter of our population.
George, what are the agencies and institutions that come into play with a problem like this, and what roles do they play?
Yes, in this kind of situation, we are looking, of course, at the Department of Education, the Department of Health, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and within these organizations, there must be an institutional collaboration because the nutrition tracking should be seamless, and it should follow a child from the healthy stages of life from 0 to 4. So, what we would want for them to do, Sana, is for them to really break the silos in working in this collective issue that the whole of society and the government should address.
All right, George, let's try to paint a clearer picture here. If a child enters school already facing developmental setbacks due to poor nutrition, due to malnutrition, how does this exactly affect their day-to-day learning? What does this look like inside the classroom?
Yes. Well, first, you cannot feed a mind if you are starving the brain. So, stunting permanently impairs brain development, making it incredibly difficult for a child to keep up academically. So stunting creates cognitive delay. So during the first few years of life, if the brain during the first years of life, the brain develops rapidly, no, but undernutrition slows it. So stunted children struggle with memory, concentration, and problem solving. So as highlighted, I remember if as highlighted in the EDCOM 2 final report, the health and nutrition gaps create lifelong barriers to learning. By the time a stunted child enters the first grade, they are already at a massive disadvantage compared to their well-nourished peers. No? So because of this, there is likelihood of higher school dropouts. Stunted children are more likely to repeat grade levels, or and they are being trapped into a cycle of this issue, exacerbated by poverty and other inequalities.
Well, George, right now, so we do have stunted children currently in schools already. So, how do schools adjust to this? How do schools address this?
Yes, schools should be our front lines. They are not just spaces for textbooks. They are the early warning systems for child survival and holistic development. So, if schools have the infrastructure to regularly measure height and weight, they should be able to make those spaces reliable for children, for them to be able to identify severe wasting and stunting early on, and also that's the reason why in Child Fund, we emphasize that a child needs to be healthy to learn safely. As schools can serve as a hub where education, health, and social welfare intersect. And beyond academics, schools are where we teach social and emotional learning, or what we call SEL. So a child who is hungry cannot emotionally regulate or focus. So schools must address the physical hunger first before they can address academic and emotional growth.
All right, so let's talk about interventions inside the school first. What are some of the programs that you believe are the most effective in treating this, in addressing this problem, right? We have school feeding programs. These are interventions that have long been there in our education system. But are they enough, George? Are they enough to address this problem, simply feeding students in school?
Yes, you're right. School feeding programs are vital, yes, but and of course we recognize them for what they are and what they provide at the moment. But while they are important, for the many vulnerable children, the meal that they get at school is only nutritious as it is at that moment. But what we are advocating for is for schools and the whole of society to realize that stunting happens before a child even reaches school. So that is the reason why we are advocating for the strict and stronger implementation of the first 1000 days law, because the moment a child is conceived, the nutrients that the mom eats already or takes, and until the child gets born, and until the first, yeah, that's the way, it's 1000 days until the next 2 years of the child. These are critical stages of life where the development of the brain and the body happens. So ang gusto lang namin sabihin is that hindi dapat magtapos or hindi final solution ang feeding program. There must be a concrete system where children and their families can access health and nutrition services without any delay and without any discrimination, para mas nako-cover yung mga health needs nila.
George, are there any programs for expectant mothers? Because not everyone has the time to prepare healthy meals, not everyone has access to healthy ingredients.
Yes, there should be. The government is actually implementing naman the first 1000 days, but I think it's also critical that the pregnant moms or expecting moms know where they can access the services, no, for health and nutrition. But also, well, it's a reality that hindi lahat ng areas in the Philippines are equally accessible, no? So there are those who are living in far-flung areas or hard-to-reach areas na talagang hindi nila ma-access yung proper health and nutrition services that they deserve. Kaya that's also one of our calls for the government to ensure that hindi lang sa ilang areas lang na achieve or na-access itong mga health and nutrition services, o mga maternal health care and nutrition service dapat sa buong bansa, no? So dapat may increase in coverage, in funding, and yung quality ng services. Dapat ma-ensure na hindi lang to attendance-based monitoring para lang for compliance na may nagawa yung government. No, they should go even beyond the work that they're doing, kasi marami pang nangangailangan ng kanilang serbisyo when it comes to health, which of course impacts children.
Right, because the survey also shows that nearly 17% of pregnant women are nutritionally at risk. George, what should mothers understand about how their maternal health and nutrition also influences their child's growth, their learning outcomes later on?
That's true. I mean, I think this is a very important task for everyone, to let the mothers, pregnant and expecting moms, and even those who just gave birth, to know that whatever they take inside their body, the food intake, the nutritional value of that matter a lot, because it provides the kind of development, or it leads to the kind of development that their children will be when they grow up, no? So it is important for them to know na dapat kumakain sila ng mga nutritious na pagkain, at kung hindi sila makahanap kaagad, dapat alam nila or maturuan sila ano yung mga alternate ways of eating healthier, or of having a healthier diet while they are pregnant or after giving birth, no? Unfortunately nga yun, so unfortunately dapat na access nila yon, kaso nga hindi sa lahat ng oras there are services like that. Kaya naman dapat may mga interventions na nanggagaling sa iba pang mga sectors that can help them, no. Yung simpleng pagkain ng mga alternate meals, kasi mahal naman talaga yung healthy meals, 'di ba? Aminin natin 'yan. Pero if they are, for example, tinuruan sila magtanim ng gulay or something para yun na maging alternate food nila, that would greatly help. Maliit na bagay pero malaking tulong para sa kinabukasan at paglaki ng kanilang mga anak.
But George, once the child reaches school, syempre not all parents makakabigay ng baon. Or when the child is in school during recess or lunch break, they have a limited amount of time to eat. So they reach for the easy food, the fast food. How would you encourage these children to make the healthier choice?
True. Actually, you're right about that. The most accessible food are usually the ones that are most unhealthy, yung mga fast food, junk foods, ganyan. Kasi mura, tas readily available. So, for schools, I think the responsibility falls also on them, no? Since nasa kanila lumalaki yung mga bata, sa kanila nag-i-stay sa a portion of the day of the child is spent inside the school. The school should also do some effort. Schools should also do some effort in promoting healthy living within their schools. So there are some schools, for example, that we commend kasi in their own ways nagkakaroon sila ng, let's say, vertical gardening. So meron silang sariling mga gardens where they can grow vegetables na yun yung sineserve nila sa mga students nila, yun sa canteens nila, ganyan. Tapos syempre nandun pa rin yung tuloy-tuloy na health and nutrition awareness na sana nanggagaling rin sa school, no? Pero I think some schools also need that learning kasi baka sa kanila, syempre, task nila is just to deliver the academic requirements of the child, pero nakakaligtaan nila that there are also health and nutrition requirements that come along with it. So sana yung mga schools rin would be capacitated to be able to support the health and nutrition needs of their learners. So hindi siya madali, but it can be done kasi nagagawa naman siya, and it's not a new concept. It's something na nandyan naman na yun nga lang, kailangan lang talaga ng investment within the local government, and yun talaga may funding para makapag-allocate ng substantial resources for them to be able to implement those kinds of health and nutrition initiatives.
Right, because a huge part of the problem is also this information gap, right? But I also wanted to focus on affordability, George, right? If we're talking about the nutritional value of the food that children are eating, we know that many families are struggling with costs, especially with the prices nowadays, right, with the economy. But if you could give any suggestions to families, what are some essential but affordable food items that could be given to children, especially during this critical period in their lives, the first 1,000 days?
Yes. So, una, we would like to recommend na i-assess ng mga parents yung kanilang surroundings, no? If there is something that they can plant sa kanilang sariling bakuran so that they can grow vegetables or any other healthier alternatives, that would be one easier step, no? Tapos, syempre, as much as possible, we know that mahal talaga yung mga healthy alternatives, no? Kaya natin pinopromote yung sana mas mag-explore sila ng healthier options. Kumbaga, wag basta-basta lang bumili sa labas. Kung mag-i-invest na rin naman sila sa pagkain, mag-invest na sila sa mas healthier na food. They can also reach out to the local government, to the barangays, kasi baka yung mga barangays can also provide seedlings or anything that they can use, no? Or if they have mga supplements that the barangay can provide, pwedeng nilang puntahan, basta lapitan lang nila. It pays to know na may mga serbisyo na napo-provide yung government and yung mga local barangays natin. There are also organizations out there that help them, no, in terms of health and nutrition. So may mga sectors na responsive rin to their needs. So it's just a matter of knowing how to reach out to them as well. Pero inside the home, syempre iwasan talaga yung pagbili ng mga processed food. Mahal na nga yun, tas hindi pa healthy. So kung pwedeng piliin na lang yung mas healthier option like mga gulay gulay, fish, or anything that can provide the necessary nutrients that a young child would need, yun talaga yung marerecommend namin. And of course, syempre, again, hindi ito magagawa ng isang tao lang. The government should also intervene on this one. Hindi lalo na tumataas ang commodity and prices ngayon. Sana the government can also regulate prices sa ating mga sa market, no, para naman maka-adjust, maka-adapt yung ating mga kapuspalad na mga parents, mga magulang, lalo na yung mga nagbubuntis na at kapapanganak pa lamang.
George, aside from possibly regulating prices, no, are there any laws that regulate the quality, the standard of food served in school cafeterias?
Not sure about that, but I think that should be part of, um, well, a portion of that is covered by the first 1,000 days law, where nandun yung mga recommended na na dapat na intake ng mga nutritional intake ng mga bata, ano yung mga pwedeng kainin, ganyan. But if there is none at the local government level, baka dapat yun yung mga ginagawa ng ordinances, or at least inaaral na mabuti together with the government agencies and other sectors para naman makabuo ng isang comprehensive plan on how to address those issues and be able to cater to the needs of these children and parents.
Well, George, the survey also shows that stunting is actually higher in rural areas compared to urban areas, and the highest rates here are in Barm, in Zamboanga Peninsula, Negros Island, and even Mimaropa. Now, with that said, do you think that our education interventions and reforms should be tailored geographically differently across different regions?
I think that should be nilo-localize natin kasi hindi naman siya one size fits all, no. We cannot use parang a cookie cutter approach to fix a crisis that has distinct geographical boundaries, no. Well, equity means giving children what they need, no, not giving every child the exact same thing. So in rural areas, you're right, the barriers are often about the physical access, severe poverty, and lack of diverse food supplies, leading to syempre higher stunting. But in urban areas, the challenges might lean more toward congested living spaces, poor sanitation, or artificial processed food dependency. So we should not lower academic expectations for rural children, because every child deserves naman the right to develop critical thinking and modern skills, no? Pero yung delivery system nila, yung education must adapt, no. So how to tailor fit it, siguro I'm thinking yung resource allocation, dapat dito yung rural schools need heavier investments, for example in agricultural education integration, like yung nababanggit kanina, school gardening or feeding the community or community programs, a stronger partnership with local agricultural councils. And then sa rural areas naman, maybe schools should act as mga health hubs that integrate directly with local rural health units, mga RHUs, to catch children in those critical ages of 0 to 4 years of childhood, no, before they even experience stunting. Tapos yung nabanggit ko kanina sa local governance, we really believe, no, that the government and communities need the flexibility to run smart strategies. I think that's one thing that nagkukulang sa government right now, yung pagiging strategic, no, yung to make it more fit to the specific terrain, rather than waiting for a blanket mandate from a certified national office or something. So I think a child in a remote mountain or coastal village, for example, deserves the same exact quality of future na nararanasan ng mga child, let's say in Metro Manila or in other advanced cities. But to get them there, we have to acknowledge that the rural child's ladder needs a few more steps of health and nutritional support.
George, is it still possible for a stunted child to be able to catch up to his or her peers?
Well, while we say na tawag dito, it's irreversible, it is indeed irreversible. Pero when we are able to provide the child more concretely yung mga pangangailangan nito, kung sabihin na natin na kinulang man sa height, pero kung hindi naman siya kinulang sa pagmamahal at atensyon at ng mga pangailangan na gagamitin niya para sa kanyang paglaki, sa kanyang pagdevelop, I think there is always a hope naman. Hindi naman nagtatapos dahil lang sa hindi nabigyan ng nutrisyon at an early age na maayos yung bata, hanggang doon na lang siya. And that's the reason why naniniwala kami that we need each other in doing this kasi hindi dapat nagtatapos sa ganong stage ng buhay yung bata. Dapat nito, kung alam na natin na nagkulang tayo, then let's do our best para tugunan yung mga pwede nating ibigay pa sa bata. No? Maaari naman matuto pa rin yung bata, hindi naman huli ang lahat. Kaya pa naman yan as long as ibigay sa kanya yung proper learning, access to learning, access to health and nutrition, access to skills development, things like that na integrated, na coordinated, na concerted effort that would still help a child to grow healthier, educated, skilled, and safe.
All right. And on that note, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your insights with us this morning. That was George De La Rama, Head of Advocacy and Communications of Child Fund Philippines. Thanks, George.
Thank you so much.